This deadly weapon fires in the blink of an eye, leaving gaping holes and scorched earth in its wake. So we're going to see if the scorched fury of the foul Skaven hordes can take on the might of Mel Gibson and his Wood Elves. So as far as the build goes, we're going to be going with a very heavy, I would say, mobile build. I mean, Mel Gibson himself, or for anyone who's relatively new to the channel, I basically just call, I'm pretty sure most of the community does, we call, I actually almost forgot his name for a second, but we call Orion Mel Gibson because they look very identical. If you actually look at their portraits, they look really, really similar, especially from Mel Gibson in Braveheart. So as far as the build goes, we're going to be going with Orion, who is my favorite lord for the Wood Elves. He is incredibly fun to use. He's fast, and against Skaven, I actually think he's not bad. He's really fast. He causes terror. He has a really nice bonus for his large and melee. So if he wants to go fisticuffs against Hellpit Abominations, Rat Ogres, Doom Wheels, Plague Furnaces, any stuff like that, he's going to be able to tear them to shreds. And against low-tier Skaven infantry, he has really good crowd control. So he does have the Hounds of Orion, which is basically like the Hounds of Gehenna from the Lore of Metal, and he does also have the Hawk's Talon. So he's really good at dealing with large targets, and he's also really good against crowds with these abilities. He causes terror. He has good ranged utility with his javelins. I think he's pretty solid. He's unbreakable. I mean, he just brings a lot to the table. Now, I don't know if he's the most competitive pick, like if you took him into a really high-level tournament environment, if he would shine as much as the Glade Lord. But in this matchup, I mean, pinning down certain Skaven units, usually the Skaven will be going very wide, so it's tough to snipe out high value anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the Glady on the Eagle would still be really good for using like Prey of Anathrama and gooting out a unit like this, or using Prey in the back line to open up other targets. But still, I think he's a really good pick here, especially if you have the item, which is going to be the Cloak of Isha. Now, without this, I would say he's pretty risky because he is quite squishy. He only has 40 melee defense. Well, that's still a lot, but the 30 armor is an issue. So if you're fighting against clan rats with spears or slingers, he's actually going to be taking a ton of damage, but this item really makes a difference. It gives him 44% ward save when he's below 20%, and also makes it so he's going to be healing. So it's very, very tough to finish him off. Definitely very Braveheart-esque. Aside from that, we do have two groups of the Deepwood Scouts. Deepwood Scouts, pretty good against Skaven. They're able to get the jump on them. They can counter skirmish against Night Runners and Gutter Runners, and more importantly, though, they pick off Rat Ogres that can deal with Plague Monks. They just give you a lot of utility on the battlefield. On top of that, we got a couple Dryads. Now, Dryads will be able to munch most Skaven infantry with the exception of Storm Vermin. Storm Vermin and Plague Monks and, of course, Censor Bears will probably beat down Dryads, but for the cost, I would say they do a pretty good job in pretty much all of those matchups except the Storm Vermin. We got a Branch Wraith in the back. She's going to be dropping some Earthbloods and the Melkoths and Shield of Thorns, which is actually quite good since it's been changed. If you look at it here, you can see that it does give you 25% physical resist and 25% weapon damage. So a lot of the times you're going to be having a couple groups of Wild Riders just riding dirty and a bit of a pack, like a Goon Squad. So if you use Shield of Thorns on them, giving them that physical resist against these Slingers and other harass units of the Skaven, plus that 25% weapon damage on top of the 45 weapon strength is really, really good. So that's pretty much it. We do have a Waywatcher, our Legolas down here. He's just going to be shooting at Skaven characters and having a good old time, and using that Arrow of Kurnus to take out artillery pieces. And in the forest, we do have one group of Wild Riders. So we have one on this side and two on the far side. So for my opponent's army, he does have a couple groups of the Night Runners, I think, Night Runners and Gutter Runners, so pretty good skirmishing tools, and I think they're very good against Wood Elves, especially the, well, these ones are the ones with 70 range. I really like the Slingers who have 140 range, but they do have stock. They could potentially creep up on top of my Deepwood Scouts. And if they're able to, I mean, these guys have pretty good combat stats as far as like skirmishers go. 24, 22, and 26 will definitely beat 18, 22, and 26 with the 15 armor. And these guys have physical resist to boot, so not bad. But if I do see him coming, definitely can get some fire. He does have some clan rats supporting those. Grace here with the Lore of Ruin, so he's going to be dropping the dreaded 13 spell if memory serves. On top of that, he does have a spoiler alert. That's like the Infinity War spoilers. He's got clan rats, and in the back, he does have some artillery. So a Plague Clock Catapult, very good against Wood Elf archers and infantry, and also a Warp Lightning Cannon, which is a very good answer against Wild Riders. However, I think on this map, it's a bit of a bold strategy. I mean, there's so many places for Wood Elves to hide. I took a fairly open field matchup here because, I just like to play that way, but like some Wood Elf players might just like straight up go through here and just like make your life a living hell for these artillery pieces. In the back, he does have one group of the Plague Monk Censor Bears, so maybe he's waiting for me to kind of come back here thinking this is a freebie, and he's just going to come out with the clubs. So guys, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So the battle's underway. You can see the Deepwood Scouts are going to be shooting in at some of these Rat Boys, just poking in at the Night Runners and doing a little bit of damage. Not much. The Rats are able to juke that. But guys, the dreaded 13 spell has been summoned. The Storm Vermin pour from the earth. And a lot of people actually don't know this because it's a spell you don't see terribly often, but the dreaded 13 spell actually does damage. So when the rats come out, it does damage on an area of impact. And it looks like it was able to hit the Deepwood Scouts there. Now, I could have sworn it did a lot more damage than that, but I think the fact that the Deepwood Scouts are not bunched up is the reason why it didn't do a lot of damage. So anyways, I'm going to be turning my Eternal Guard and Mel Gibson, my other troops, to fight these Storm Vermin. In the front, the Dryads are going to be engaging against the Clan Rats, which is going to be a very good engagement. I'll probably be able to win this one 2v1. Eternal Guard, everyone else is going to be scooting forward, and suddenly, this Rat Boy, he better run. Mel Gibson's coming for that booty, and he is fast, he is furious, he's going to be drifting all over these guys. He's got 54 speed against a 44 of the Great Seer. That bonus first large is going to be really neat. In the meantime, my Wild Riders did collapse over here, and he had some spears here, but the Clan Rats, you don't need to respect them too much if they're unbraced. And also, I use Shield of Thorns to give them that fat damage buff. You can see it's going to be buffing their weapon strength and also their weapon damage, and also giving them that really good physical resist. So we're able to just ram those guys and take them out, doing some substantial damage. And on the other side of the map, I was trying to work through the forest with my Wild Riders, but he had Night Runners and like Plague Monks and all sorts of rats like hiding in the forest, probably expecting such plays, so I wasn't able to get a good play over there. In the meantime, though, we're just going to take advantage of the speed, and the Horn of the Wild Hunt has been sounded. Mel Gibson has given them the charge bonus, and Horn of the Wild Hunt was nerfed. It's a little bit unfortunate, but regardless, these Wild Riders now have a charge bonus of 100. So anything they're able to hit for the next like 20 or 30 seconds is going to be huge, and Orion gets that charge bonus. He's now up to a charge bonus of 105, and you can see how badly that's making him just spank this Grey Seer. So we're going to be moving into the back, the Wild Riders getting in there, going after the Gutter Runners with Poison, who do have the Unholy Clamor, but this is just going to be a massacre as the Rats get run down by these Regiments of Renown. These are the Wild Riders or Wild Hunters. There's the Wild Riders of Kurnus. I can't quite remember, but we'll check in a moment. Wild Hunters of Kurnus. So we're able to basically just evaporate those rats right there. They took quite a bit of damage and will be melting in a matter of seconds. Now we've kind of opened up the back line a little bit, so we're going to be jumping onto the Warp Lightning cannons, bouncing back and forth, and the other Wild Riders have come out of the forest not unscathed. They've been getting shurikens in the back and taking quite a bit of poke, but we have effectively, or at least temporarily, shut down the artillery pieces of the Skaven. But it looks like he's going to be dropping some lore or lightning. Yeah, it might actually do some good damage, and does come in and zap a couple Wild Riders. He also got some really good scorches that I didn't get to show you guys because I was so focused on the back line here, but he was able to scorch and melt some of my Deepwood Scouts and do some pretty good work with that evil ruin magic. So the Waystalker Legolas is just going to be moving up the hill, trying to get line of sight here on the Grey Seer, and pretty much the entire time, and this works for almost every Skaven Lord. If you're facing off against Skrulk or Tretch or, Queek, you can just grab Orion and just have him hunt the Lord. I mean, there's very little, aside from Rat Ogres, that Skaven can do to stop him. And on top of that, if they do have Rat Ogres, you shoot them with Deepwood Scouts and you have plenty of other answers. So here there are some Stormburn with Halberds in the forest, so it looks like he did have a bit of a defensive perimeter. So we're going to be pulling back, but also taking casualties. So my Wild Riders here taking some shanks. The Night Runners are also chasing me a little bit, but Orion's still in the hunt. He's coming back up the hill. The Hounds of Gibson have been popped in the back on top of these Plague Monks, but it was a bit of a swing and a miss. Deepwood Scouts are shooting up as well, and they're just going to be shooting into whatever they can hit, but the name of the game so far has really been these Wild Hunters, as well as the Wild Riders, 85 and 80 kills respectively. A very good scorch going down the formation here from Lore of Ruin, and that is just a cheap spell. It costs almost nothing, and he's able to get some pretty good damage on those troops, so definitely not bad value. Over in the forest, we have Dryads fighting against Storm Vermin, and I mean, Storm Vermin don't hit terribly hard. I mean, they have 34 weapon strength, so the Dryads can hold for quite some time. But Orion, with that terror route, wherever he goes, it's just this massive ball of terror, and Orion's going to be charging in here, just annihilating these Skaven artillery pieces, so he's going to be getting onto those, and the crew's probably going to just duck and run here in a moment. You can see my opponent does pull the crew and run away there. On the other side of the battlefield, my opponent is actually doing a little bit better. You can see that the Grey Seer and his troops are just kind of routing off my Wild Riders, just pushing them back, just ramming them with the bell. Now, I do have some infantry coming up. These 70 Dryads here are going to be super useful because this force is pretty tattered, and we are going to get a fat timing charge right here. So we pop an Earthblood to make sure our guys can take the damage a little bit better, and the forces of the Wood Elves just going to be charging into these Skaven, knocking them back, doing a ton of shock damage. Wild Riders are essentially specialists against lightly armored targets. They have really good weapon damage, low armor piercing, but against things like Plague Monks and Clan Rats and Censer Bearers, those are pretty much like the ideal charging targets. Now, you don't want to say in sustained combat. The Branch Wraith is here. That's going to be popping the, not popping, but giving the Call of the Wild, which gives that perpetual melee attack. And the Deepwood Scouts are going to be shooting in against the Censer Bearers, trying to really polish those guys off. So, one thing about Wild Rider plays, you really need to bounce back and forth. You never want to stay in one area for too long. You just fight for about 3 or 4 seconds when you charge, pull back and go somewhere else. It's extremely efficient. So Orion, in the meantime, has done a pretty good job shutting down the artillery pieces over here. So he's going to be surging back and popping the Horn of the Wild Hunt. It has been sounded, the Azrai are on the hunt. We're going to be charging back in after this Grace here, but I am pinned in a little bit. So my opponent does pin me in with some Night Runners. And you can see my Wild Riders and some of my other troops here actually in a little bit of trouble as they are wavering. Censer Bearers are going to be contaminating them, really punishing their leadership. Plague Monks piling in. The Unholy Clamor has been popped. So the Skaven retaliation is here. And a lot of the Skaven troops that were on the periphery of the battlefield, he does have a very wide battle line. He was kind of over here and over here as well, are now collapsing inward, making it a little bit tougher for my forces to get in there and butter that sweet bread. So the Branch Wraith here is also going to be fighting, but the Branch Wraith are just getting chewed up by these Sensor Bears. Sensor Bears hit so incredibly hard. But Mel Gibson hears the call of the Hounds. He's going to be dropping the Hounds right here to just jump through these guys, and it actually does a lot of damage. I mean, look at that. It basically annihilated those Storm Vermin, did some really good work against the Plague Monk Sensor Bears, but the damage output of the Sensor Bear is very, very impressive as he is able to kill my Branch Wraith. Not kill it, but he breaks it and is going to be able to push it off potentially if he wants to allocate some resources to doing so. In the meantime, Deepwood Scouts are just shooting in against the Sensor Bears, continuing to drop that hot fire. Legolas is up here on the high ground. Hasn't been terribly useful this game, but again, he's leading these Eternal Guard, and he's not terrible in melee. Honestly, he should be able to help these Eternal Guard at least hold this engagement. I mean, I don't think they're going to win against 107 Stormvermin, but we'll find out. On the other side, I did have some Branch Wraiths come back who are going to be rallying and finishing off that Plague Clock Catapult. And it looks like there's going to be some Ruin Magic going down. A little bit off kilter here. It might melt a couple of troops, and it does actually get the Wild Rider, so pretty good cast over my opponent. But I just think the Fury of Mel Gibson is going to be too much. They're going to be piling in Wild Riders in really good shape. The Storm and Shield, I was about to say Storm and Shield, but the Sword and Shield Storm Vermin are going to be fighting, but they're not immune to Psychology, so honestly, a couple seconds of Mel Gibson being up in their grill and a couple cycle charges here from the Wild Riders is really probably just going to make these guys rout immediately. They're going to be taking a ton of damage. So the Grace here is going to be moving back in. Looks like there's going to be some sort of Witchcraft going down. Maybe that was, is that the Warp Lightning? Looks like it's going to be Warp Lightning in the back. And it looks like, wow, it actually did like 200-300 damage there. Thankfully, I did have Earthblood popped as well, but the Grey Seer definitely not having a good time. I do have Legolas sitting here and shooting him, so Legolas is able to snipe out the Grey Seer, and that's going to be army losses for the Skavens. So well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that game. It was definitely quite a bit of fun. I really just wanted to show you guys that Orion plus the Horn of the Wild Hunt with Wild Rider builds can be very strong. I mean, putting their charge bonus up to 100 if you're just cycle charging and bouncing back and forth and just constantly charging. Plus, Mel Gibson gets a charge bonus of 100. He can pretty much Shrek anything he wants to if he has that charge bonus and he gets in there. I still think it's a viable item if you are going to be using the big Gibson himself or Orion. So the one thing I would probably cut just to optimize the build a little bit, I would probably get rid of the Waystalkers or the Waystalker here. Maybe just get another Wild Rider or I mean, just mix in more infantry. There's a ton of different choices. But yeah, maybe get like Sisters of Thorn actually. Yeah, cut the Waystalker, get a Sister of Thorn, which can give you a free Shield of Thorns plus a free Curse, which would be really good against a Skaven for slowing them and lowering their melee attack. So I think cut that, get a Sister of Thorn. But aside from that, it's a well-rounded build. You have answers for the Rat Ogres, the big targets. You have answers for most of the infantry, and yeah, they can do the trick. And Orion's always quite a bit of fun. So for my opponent's build, I think if it had been an open field map, it could have been a lot better. Just the nature of that map really punished him. There were so many places for me to hide, and I noticed that for most of the battle, his Warp Lightning Cannon did not have line of sight. It was just kind of like trying to get these very awkward shots and like maybe getting one bolt off. And I think that was really what kind of dragged him down there. But aside from that, it was definitely a pretty cool build. I think Slinger units are very good against Wood Elves. Wood Elf Cav, even though they are shielded with Silver Shields, I think, have very light armor. So these Night Runners can actually get some huge damage. But yeah, I just think the map was really tough for him. And obviously the Grey Seer with Lore of Ruin, I don't think is the optimal competitive pick, but it's not bad. The Warp Lightning did some decent damage. The Dreaded 13 spell definitely sent a message for sure. It instilled fear in the hearts of my Dryads, but alas, they were able to push through and get onto the Skaven hordes. But yeah, Kitanai actually means dirty in Japanese, if I'm not mistaken. So the dirty Skaven hordes over there. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this Wood Elf vs Skaven showdown. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.